Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we're making this super cool Northern Diamond Square. So what you're going to need to make these squares is your yarn, which I will get into in a minute, and a crochet hook, whatever goes along with your yarn. I'm using a 5mm hook. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a yarn needle. I am making these particular Northern Diamond squares out of this fabulous cotton bamboo from Ice Yarn. This is really a delicious yarn. It has a great weight to it, a great feel, and it has a beautiful drape also. So I have 2 packs of each of these yarn, which is 8 balls, which is 800 grams. So 800 grams times the 4 colors. And just a little about the yarn. It is cotton bamboo light, 100 grams, 140 meters, and it calls for a 3 to 4 millimeter needle, which I just add a size. I'm going to be using a 5mm crochet hook. It is also a 3 weight. So 2 packs of each of the 4 colors, and that will be enough for about a double size blanket. So you'll need 2 packs of each of these colors for a total of 8 packs of yarn. You can of course get more yarn and make a larger blanket. I'm going to be making mine about a double size, enough to go like a really big bed runner across my bed, but it won't be quite a queen size. It'll be smaller than queen size, so maybe it'll be about a double. How I am going to be doing it for size wise is my first color in the center. I'm going to take a ball, and I worked up all of the squares I could get from 1 ball of yarn. It worked out to 13.5 approximate squares from 1 ball of yarn. So take those, and then I finished them all up. I put on each of the different colors so that they're finished. The tails are still loose and in there, but enough to lay across my bed that I want it to fit, and see how many I need. So take your 12 squares that you have finished and lay them out. So my blanket, if I was making it for this bed, would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wide, and maybe 5 across. I'd put 1 more in that top corner. So I would just I'd do the math. I would times 9 by 5, and that would be how many squares I need to make. But you put it on whatever, you lay them out on whatever bed or surface you want your blanket to cover or be the same size as, and that'll tell you how many squares you have to make. So to get started, go to Ravelry and download the written pattern by Torun Johansson. Is the Northern Diamond Square. I will put a link for it in the description box below, but you can also just Google Northern Diamond Square, and it is by Torun Johansson. So get your pattern ready, and let's get started. Pick your center color. We're going to be making your squares. And we're going to start by making a slip knot. So I just wrap the yarn around 2 fingers and poke it through. It's not the fanciest way, but that is just how I do it. But make a slip knot any which way you feel comfortable. You don't need a very long tail, just an inch or 2. We're going to work over it and cut it off. So put that loop on your hook and shrink it down. And chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Push your hook into the very first chain that we made. So to count your chains, you don't count this little knot and you don't count what's on your hook. You just count these V's in between. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 V's. We're just going to push our hook into the very first one. It doesn't matter if you have 2 loops of that stitch on your hook or just 1. It doesn't matter. Just push your hook in. So it looks a bit like that. Now lay your tail along the side and poke your finger in the center there. You want to be holding open the center of your ring. Grab your yarn and pull it through both loops on your hook for a slip stitch, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm still holding that center open with my thumb and my finger. Wrap your yarn and go right into where you're holding it and make 1 double crochet. So grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn and take off 2. Our chains count as double crochets in this pattern, so that counts as 2 double crochets, and we're going to make 1 more double crochet into the center of the ring, like that. Chain 2 for your corner, 1 and 2, wrap your yarn, and 3 more double crochets into the center of the ring. Chain 2, 1 and 2. Keep your tail around with your work. We're just working over it, so it'll be nice and tidy on the back side. Wrap your yarn and 3 more double crochets into the center of the ring. And to make your double crochets, wrap your yarn, go into the center of the ring, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So there is another double crochet. You can kind of see how we're starting to make a square shape. 1 more double crochet to complete that set of 3. Chain 2. And 3 more double crochets into the center of the ring. So you can just pinch your ring and pinch your stitches and just pull your stitches back and your ring out, and that'll give you a little more space to put your stitches so they lay down nice and flat. So 3 more double crochets into the center of the ring. Now we're going to join with a chain 1 and a single crochet. So I'll show you where we do our single crochet. It's going to be the 3rd V. So you can see if you pull that back a little bit, there's 1 little V down here, a 2nd, and a 3rd. So it's this one right on the side. You can also count from the top. There's 1, 2, and it would be the 3rd one over. Just right in there, we're just going to put our hook in, and you want 2 loops of that stitch on your hook. So push your hook in, make sure you have 2 strands of that stitch on your hook, and grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So that's a single crochet, and that just leaves us nice and even in the corner so we don't have any weird chain going up the side of our square. So chain 3 to get your height, 1, 2, 3. That also counts as our first double crochet. So wrap your yarn and into the very same corner make 1 double crochet. Wrap your yarn again, and now we're going to go into this, to each stitch going along the sides of our first stitch is this chain, and just work into that big hole that we made. There's a hole right here. So you want to go into that one, and our second stitch is going to pick up this loop at the front and attach it with this loop at the back. So our first stitch goes here into the chain, and our second picks up that little straggler at the front and pairs it with the stitch at the back. The 3rd one looks normal, just like that. So we're going to do 1, 2, and 3 double crochets into the stitches below. So first into the hole, 1 double crochet, the hole of the chain, and now you can see that little stitch got quite small. So just work your way underneath it, and it'll come onto your hook just nicely. Make 1 double crochet. That's our second, and our 3rd into the regular stitch just there. So there's our 3 that we worked into 3 plus our corner. So now we're going to do our corner, and corners are 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So there's my first 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into the same corner space. There's 1 and 2. And now because we're not turning our work, our stitch is a little bit before the post, so now we have to work into this stitch right there. Sometimes we can work over it a bit, so you might have to pull your stitches back to find it, but we need to go into that very first stitch. All with double crochets. So into the first stitch, double crochet, into the second double crochet, and into the third double crochet. Now we're going to do our corner into our corner space, 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets. 3 double crochets into the next 3 stitches, and then a corner, 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets into the 3 stitches, and I'll meet you when we get back to this corner here where we joined. That's what it looks like so far. If you're not sure of how to do a solid granny square, I will link a video in the card above. You just click that exclamation mark up there, and that will show you how to do it in more detail. If I've gone too fast, I'm sorry if I have. Into this corner space where we started, we're going to join to the top of the chain 3. So we need to do 2 double crochets into that corner space to finish our corner. So 2 double crochets into the corner. So we're going to join to the top of the chain 3. So you can just count your V's, 1, 2, and 3, just right there. Or you can just go over. So you know that's a double crochet. It's the stitch right after your double crochet. So just go into that stitch. Make sure you get 2 loops of that stitch on your hook. So chain 1 and push your hook into the top of the chain 3. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. So that is your single crochet to join. Hold that corner open with your thumb and finger and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. That counts as your first double crochet. 1 more double crochet into the same corner space. And now we're going to go around again, making 1 double crochet into every stitch, and corners are 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets into each corner space. So the only tricky part is your chain in the very beginning. So I just go straight into that hole and make that into my first double crochet, and then I pick up this little guy that's kind of fallen down and match him up with the loop at the back to make my second double crochet, and then 1 into each stitch, going all the way around your work. So there's our first double crochet and our second. See how tiny that strand at the front goes, that little guy? So you have to get him and the one at the back. And that'll be every round when you're starting out. So 1 double crochet, and now it's all easy. Each one of these is a stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's your corner. 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So keep going like that all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back to where you joined. When you get back to your corner, 2 double crochets into that corner space to finish. 1 and 2. And now we're finished with this color yarn, so I'm going to join with a chain 2 and a slip stitch. So chain 2, 1 and 2, and now we're going to slip stitch to the top of the chain 3. So there's 1, 2, and 3. I'm just going to go into that stitch and make a slip stitch. So push your hook in, 2 loops of that stitch on your hook, grab your yarn and bring it back, turn your hook, and bring it through. So there is your slip stitch. Chain 1 to secure your yarn, cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. So there is your first square. And now we've worked over our tail in the very beginning, so we can just cut that off. If you haven't worked over your tail, then you're going to have to sew it in, but if you worked over it, you can just take your scissors and cut that off. I like these curved ones because they just make me feel safe that I'm not going to be cutting my work. If you would like to try them, there's a link for them from Amazon in the description box below. So now we are ready for the next stage of our work, which is putting on this white round. So single crochets with these drop down stitches. So I'm just going to join in the corner before my last join. So push your hook into that corner space, grab your new yarn, whatever you're using for your overlay, and loop of yarn on your hook, just like that. Bring it through and slip stitch with both to join. Now we can drop our tail and chain 1. Now we're going to be making 5 single crochets and into each stitch. So each one of these V's is a stitch. If you're looking from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We want to be going underneath the V and getting both of those strands on our hook. We also want to work over our tail for a couple stitches, so just hold it alongside your work so we can just work over that. So no wrapping your yarn, just push your hook into that first stitch, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So that's 1, here's our second. Here's our 4th. Now drop your tail, and here is number 5. So make sure you have 5 single crochets. It does not look like we've gotten halfway. It looks like we're doing it too soon, but you can just count your stitches. 1 is into the corner, so this yarn goes into that corner space, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 into your stitches. So that is what we want to do. Now you're going to do something pretty fun. So wrap your yarn 3 times. This is a double treble. So wrap your yarn 3 times, and now you're going to go down, not the row you just finished, but the one down below, row number 2, and we're going to put our hook into the corner space and out on the other side of that very first double crochet. We're just going to go into the corner and right around that post of the first double crochet. So into the corner and just push your hook up on the other side of that double crochet, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So now there's 2 loops on your hook. Just leave those 2 loops there. We want to keep those on our hook right now. So now wrap your yarn 3 times again. So 1, 2, 3. 3 wraps around our hook. And now we're going to go in to the double crochet on the other side. So we're going to go put our hook in before the double crochet and our hook out through the corner space, just like that on this other side. So put your hook in before the double crochet and bring it up in that corner space to get that post on your hook. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Now we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to wrap our yarn and take off all 3 loops. So wrap your yarn and take off 1, 2, and 3 loops. So now we've made this cool little V shape on top of our granny square. And now we're going to skip a stitch. So we've gone into this V here. So we're going to skip this V, skipping this one and going into the second. So push your hook into that stitch, grab your yarn and bring it back. I hold the top of those double trebles together. I've put my finger right on top so those loops don't get in my way, and make 1 single crochet. So grab your yarn and take off 2 loops. So now you can let go of everything. You've made your first single crochet back along this side. So now we're going to do 5 single crochets. So just make sure that you have 5 stitches left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 we already have done. So 1 single crochet into each stitch until we get to the corner. So now into that corner space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1, 2, and 1 more single crochet into that same space, like that. Now we're back to our chain here, and I've woven in my tail before, that's why mine looks a bit funny. But we're just going to go into that same hole, and the second one we're going to pick up that strand and pair it with the one at the back. So into the chain, 1 single crochet, just going over your tail a little bit. And the next one, that funny one, pick up that front strand and make a single crochet. So that's 2. Now we have to do 3 more single crochets. 1, 2, and 3. So we've done our corner and then 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now get your tension up again. You want a small loop on your hook. You don't want that too big. And 3 loops. You're going to wrap your yarn 3 times. And then find that first stitch on the second row right by the corner. So we're going to go into the corner and out on the other side to work around that double crochet. So hook into the corner and up on the other side. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Leave the last 2 loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn 3 times again. And now we're going to go in before the last double crochet and out through the corner space. And bring your yarn back and wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2, 3 loops on your hook, wrap your yarn and take off all 3 loops. So that's what we're going to be doing all the way around to get this cute little overlay. Another way you can count where to go in is you can count your posts. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be 5. So whichever way is easy for you to count, I'd count backwards 5. But you can also skip 1, whatever's easier for you to identify. So 5 single crochets, 1 into each stitch, like that. Into your corner, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the same corner space. And now this stitch here, you can see, now you can see it. I have to get in this stitch here and I've kind of worked over it. You can see it's covered up. It looks like this is my first stitch, but it is not. This post here, this post, the top of it is right underneath my stitches. So if that happens to you, grab your stitches and your new stitches and kind of pull it back. Now you can see I have a big hole waiting for a stitch right there. So make sure you're always going into that first stitch. It can sometimes hide on you. So 5 single crochets. And when I get going too fast, just pause the video, get caught up, and then press play again. So there is 5 single crochets. Wrap your yarn 3 times. Find that the first double crochet after your corner. Hook into the corner, out on the other side of that double crochet. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Leave the last 2 on your hook. Wrap your yarn 3 times again. Find the double crochet on the other end of that row. Put your hook in before and out through the corner. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Now wrap your yarn and take off all 3. 1, 2, and 3. Get it laying flat again. Now I count backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Put my hook into number 5. Make 1 single crochet, and I'll just hold the top of that stitch down so it doesn't get in the way of my hook. Single crochet and finish single crochets on that row. We've already counted, so now we don't have to worry. Into the corner, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. And remember, we have to look for that very first stitch. So pull your stitches back so you can see where it is, and it's right there. So there's 1 and 5. Wrap your yarn 3 times. Find that first double crochet after the corner and make your weird double treble crochet, but leave it on your hook. Leave the last 2 strands. Wrap your yarn 3 times and go in before the double crochet on the other side of that row and finish them here. So you just keep wrapping your yarn and taking off 2, same as a double crochet, and when there's only 3 left, you wrap your yarn and take off all 3. Just like that. Now I count backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Single crochet and pinch down the top of that stitch with your thumb so it stays out of the way. There's 1 and 5. And into our corner space, 1 single crochet, chain 2. And now we're going to slip stitch to join. So we're just going to go in, see this little space we have here from where we joined our yarn? I just push my hook straight into that space and make a slip stitch. Push your hook in, grab your yarn and bring it back, turn your hook, bring it through, chain 1 and cut your yarn. We just need enough to sew in with a needle, so maybe 3 or 4 inches. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So now we're finished with our first round of single crochets. So we're ready to get our third color of yarn. Mine is this nice bright green, but use whatever color you are using for your pattern. And again, I'm going to join in the corner before my last join. So I'm going to pick this corner here. And I'm just going to go in to that corner space, just like that. There is a weird little loop down in there. That is your first stitch. So make sure your hook goes in before that. Just kind of keep an eye on that little strand down in there. So same thing, loop of yarn on your hook. Bring your yarn through, slip stitch with both to join and drop your tail. So I'm again going to hold it alongside of my work and chain 2, 1 and 2. Into the same corner space, wrap your yarn, put your hook in, grab your yarn and bring it back, wrap your yarn and take off 2, wrap your yarn and take off 2. So that counts as 2 double crochets, and now you can see why we wanted to leave that little strand there, leave that stitch alone. That is going to be our next stitch. Now we're going to go into right there and make 8 double crochet. So wrap your yarn and go into that first single crochet and make a double crochet. And now 1 into each stitch, going all the way across, working over your tail part way. And we're just going to be going in underneath there, underneath the V's, and getting both strands of the V on our hook. So pause the video and put 1 double crochet into each stitch going along this side. This stitch here where we did our trebles together, or double trebles together, it's a bigger stitch, so just do a regular double crochet. Don't make a super big loose one, and use a little bit of tension getting over to this next stitch here. It seems smaller, but just get your hook under and make 1 double crochet on this side, like that. And now keep going, 1 double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you at the corner. When you get close to the corner, I just bring my yarn forward, my tail, and just lay it across my work. Then when I come to sew it in with a needle later, at least I have it going one direction. So it'll just help make it a little easier for sewing it in later. So just keep getting to that corner, holding that tail down like that. Now into our corner space, again, remember to get into the corner, we're going to make 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, and into the same corner space, 2 more double crochets, 1 and 2. So corners are 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets, all into the same corner space. Now we're going to keep going along, and this first stitch here where we joined, we're going to get into that one right there, just into the middle of it, and now into each stitch. So keep going all the way around, 1 double crochet into each stitch, and corners are 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets, remembering to get into that first stitch at the corner. So pause the video and I'll meet you when you get back to the join. When you get back to your corner, 2 double crochets into that corner space, 1 and 2, chain 2 because we're finished with this color, and slip stitch to the top of the chain 3. So there's 1, that's our join, and then 2 and 3, just right there. So poke your hook in, make sure you get 2 strands of that stitch on your hook, grab your yarn and bring it back, turn your hook and bring it through, chain 1 to secure your yarn, and cut your yarn, leaving like maybe about a 4-inch tail, just enough for you to sew in with a needle later, and snug that down to secure. So now we are finished. We get to do 1 more super fun row with just treble crochet drop downs and single crochet. So grab the color you're going to be joining in, and again I'm going to join in the corner right before my last join, just so I'm always picking a different corner. I don't want to bulk up one particular area. Put your hook into that corner space, loop of your new color on your hook. You could also be using the same color as you did before. That's what I did for these ones here. So depending what look you're going for, I think I did it for all of them actually. It's all the same color. Up to you, whatever you want to do. I'm going to be using this light blue. So bring it through, slip stitch with both to join and drop your tail. We're going to work over it halfway or so, so just hold it along your work. Chain 1, that counts as your first single crochet even though it looks funny. And now into your very first stitch, single crochet. We're going to make 8 single crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to drop my tail so I can work it back in the opposite direction with my needle. So 4 single crochets. Here is 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to do a drop down treble crochet. So wrap your yarn twice and go right underneath that stitch you made. Just poke your hook under both of those posts. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Like that. So that just pulls it up and looks nice. There is different ways of doing this that Torun shows us on her pattern. So you can go ahead and do it any which way. I just like how this looks. It keeps it, like for me, I like how this one looks. So that is how I'm going to be teaching you. But there's other ways on her pattern. There's lots of different alternative methods. But this is how I like to do it. Now we're going to skip that stitch that it is right on top of. We're going to skip that stitch. We're going to go into the next. So how I look for it, I can see the green color or whatever color you're using, but I can see it right after all this big joiny thing I just did. I can see this one and I just trace it up. I'm going to go right into that stitch. Or you can look behind, skip a stitch and go into the second, whatever you'd like to do. I just lay it on top and then I can just see that I need to go right there into that stitch. We're going to make 8 single crochets. 1, 7. When you get close to the corner, you can bring your tail over if you like, just like that. So we work over it one direction. There's our 8th single crochet. And now into our corner, we're going to do single crochet. So 1 single crochet, chain 2, and 1 single crochet, just like we did in the round below. And now here's our chain, that's our messy bit. So into the hole right there, we're going to make a single crochet, and then we're going to pick up this loose bit at the front, match it with its partner at the back for our second single crochet, and then the rest of them are easy. Total of 8. So here is our first one. There's 1. Our second one is that one laying down. Get under that. There's 2. Now 3. And 8, like that. Wrap your yarn twice and make a treble crochet around both of those loops at the underneath. So just poke your hook under both those trebles, grab your yarn and bring it back. I'm using a little bit of tension down there. I want it to be snug. I don't want a big loose treble crochet. I want a little tight one. So wrap your yarn and take off 2, and here's our last take off 2. So it's a triple take off. Now we're going to go into our next stitch. So skip a stitch, skip where you did your treble, and go into the next one. So remember, look for that big hot mess, trace the stitch going up, and that is the guy right there. So poke your hook in, single crochet, and you'll know it's the right spot if you have 8 stitches left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's right. 8 single crochets. That will get you to your corner. 1 single crochet into the corner space, chain 2, 1 and 2. 1 more single crochet into that corner space, and 8 single crochets along this side, and I'll meet you when we get to our drop down treble. So there's our 8 single crochets. You can count what's in your corner and then just count these little V's kind of going down. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you could also see that the stitch that goes into your trebles from down below, that one is what we're ignoring. So that's where we're going to replace it with an overlay, a treble crochet overlay. So wrap your yarn twice. Go underneath those trebles, just get them both on your hook. Use some tension now. You don't want your yarn to be sloppy. Grab your yarn and bring it back. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. Wrap your yarn and take off 2. So there is our treble. And if you straighten it all out, you'll see where it lays down, just on top of that double crochet from underneath. If we're going to skip a stitch, we are going to skip a stitch, but just go into that next stitch, what looks like the next stitch. And we'll make 8 single crochets to get back to the corner. There's 8 now into our corner. Single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet into that corner space. And 8 single crochets to get to where we need to be on this side. So again, that stitch here in the center going into our treble from down below, that's empty. We're not doing anything into that stitch, and we've done 8 single crochets across. Wrap your yarn twice. Go underneath those trebles to put them both on your hook. Use some tension on your yarn and make 1 treble crochet around that join down there for this. It'll look like that. Now 8 single crochets to get to the corner. Now into our corner space, 1 single crochet. We're finished with our color, so we're going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and slip stitch into the center, that big gaping hole just right there. Just push your hook in, or anywhere where you would rather do it. I just go into that big space, bring your yarn back, turn your hook, bring your yarn through, chain 1 to secure your yarn. So lay your yarn along the sides that you're going to be sewing together with this tail. So I'm going to leave enough to sew 2 sides together. So along this top side and then down to down here. So that is 1 length. So I'm going to do 3 of those just to be sure. So there's 1, 2, and 3. So that's 3 strands that go on the same join or the same size that I'm going to be sewing, and that is how much yarn to leave. I left a bit more. You can judge for yourself, but that's how I do it. It kind of looks like you have a really long tail, but that's enough to sew this square together without adding more yarn. If you do this for all of your squares, you won't have to add more yarn later. You can sew your whole blanket together with your tails. So pull your hook up and your big long tail through and snug that down. Now keep going until you have all your squares made, and then we will be joining them together before the end of the month. So a little tip to stay motivated, I start with my first colored and I make all of my little squares, and then I turn them all into, I do the next step on all of them, and then I'll do the next step of adding the green, and then my last step of adding my final round. So that just kind of helps keep me motivated and helps me not decide that I'm only going to be making a lapgan because I'm tired of making squares. So get all of them started and then work step by step until you have all of your squares ready to join. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, hit the subscribe button down below. We have tutorials every week, podcasts, live chats on Fridays, and lots of goodness throughout the week. We'd love to have you join us. Also love to see what you are doing with your Northern Diamond squares. You can follow me on Instagram at Secret Yarnery, and you can also join our Facebook group, which is the Secret Yarnery Crochet Community, where you can upload your photos of whatever yarn colors you are using. I'd love to see it. So thanks so much, everybody, and stay hooked.